Well, joining us in studio this afternoon to discuss this further is political analyst KF Malindi Jr. joins us in studio. Good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us here on ANN7.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. So there's a lot of speculation doing the rounds, a lot of opinions as to what is happening in Zimbabwe. What's yours?
I think one of the biggest issues that we've had in the country of late is social media. And social media has brought about a lot of speculation. If Karl Marx could put it right, he would have called social media the opium of the Zimbabwean people right now. And looking at the G40's influence, which is Grace Mugabe, she has fed social media with a lot of her rants at political rallies. Whereas being the seasoned politician that he is, Vice President Mnangagwa has been more quiet and calculating. And I don't think a lot of people saw this coming. First of all, I don't think they saw his axing coming or him coming back after a week. And even that is speculation, but considering the press statement that was released by General Chiwenga a day ago, we definitely are of the assumption that Vice President Mnangagwa will be returning into Zimbabwe.
Let's chat a little bit about the political situation in Zimbabwe over the last couple of weeks. The axing of Mnangagwa, the factions that are present there, G40 you've mentioned. What was the political situation in the country about a couple of days ago?
I think the situation has been the same for the past year. It has been about the succession race. Now, personally, as a political analyst, I wouldn't have thought that Grace Mugabe had a chance at being able to succeed as the president of the nation. A lot of people did assume that President Mnangagwa, Vice President Mnangagwa would have made it. But like I said, her influence, especially her position with the president, gained a lot of influence and a lot of traction. But we can't forget that Vice President Mnangagwa has close allegiance and allies within the army, the military. And it has all led to what has happened over the past 24 hours.
And with regards to how the situation has unfolded, whether or not it's a coup, that question is still doing the rounds. Is it a coup?
I'm disappointed with the statement that was released by President Jacob Zuma. Why? Because when we talk of constitutionality or constitutionalism, basically whether something is in the Constitution or whether it should be in the Constitution, at the end of the day, one thing that I can safely say is that Zimbabweans are very happy at what has happened in the past 24 hours. And social media is rife with people talking about, in fact, a friend of mine actually woke up and said, Happy Independence Day to me.
Oh, wow.
So we cannot deny that whether it is a coup or not, of which it is a coup, just maybe a soft coup, the result of that coup is something that the people of Zimbabwe are happy about. People of Zimbabwe have been wanting change for a very long time. And one of the most famous or popular political terms of 2017 in South Africa has been state capture. And the G40 had captured the state of Zimbabwe. I mean, if we have children of the president flossing $60,000 Petit Philippe watches and pouring $300 champagne on those watches on social media in a country where people haven't been paid over 6 months, where civil servants aren't being paid, definitely this change is something that the people of Zimbabwe are going to welcome.
Now, there's been people stating that, President Robert Mugabe is clinging onto power. It's time for him to step down. There's been issues around his age as well. Do you think that the president will be able to withstand this sort of challenge to his authority?
Political analytics in Zimbabwe have been very meager over the past 3 decades. Why? Because there's been no strong opposition to Robert Mugabe within the party. He has run uncontended over the past 3 decades within the party. And this is clearly an internal coup. So for us to really look at the dynamics of the situation that he's currently in is very difficult. Why? Because a lot of people assumed that he would have wanted to relinquish power, but because that he wasn't relinquishing power because of people beside him and also because of his family. And the assumption as well is that Grace Mugabe wanted to get into power. Why? To safeguard the gains that she has made over the past 3 decades in the case that there is a Zimbabwe where Robert Mugabe is not present. For him to be able to survive this, I do not see it being possible because yes, the army has said that he is safe and that the coup and that his life is not in any type of jeopardy.
Yes, safety is guaranteed.
However, then why have we not heard from the president? Why are we hearing from the military? So I think that in itself, even though everything is speculation and we're assuming things, I do think that that must say something about the current situation.
And on the topic of speculation, there's also, word doing the rounds that President Robert Mugabe is going to be stepping down, that there's going to be a press briefing sometime tomorrow. It is obviously speculation, but do you think that, bearing in mind the relationship that you mentioned between Mnangagwa and the military, do you think that Mnangagwa will then take the position of president, or how do you see this unfolding?
I can't say as to who would take up the position of being the president of the country, but I do see Robert Mugabe stepping down, not willingly, but obviously because of the actions that have occurred over the past 24 hours. I'm assuming that negotiations are in progress for that to be what is going to happen within the next probably 48 to 72 hours. I would think that the most prime candidate to take up his position, at least on an interim level, would have to be Emmerson Mnangagwa. Let us not forget that ZANU-PF does have a Congress that's coming up in December.
Okay. And on the topic of the president's wife, Grace Mugabe, with regards to her succession ambitions, do you think that she would take that position, bearing in mind everything that has transpired in the last year, like you mentioned, and today?
I don't think Grace Mugabe is in the running at all any longer. Because the G40, she was the leader of the generation of the 40. And speculation as well, rumors are that some of her closest allies have already been arrested. We can confirm that Minister of Finance, Chombo, has been arrested. So, I mean, to even assume that she's in the running or she's in the race to become leader of ZANU-PF, let alone the candidate for the presidency in 2018, definitely not.
Where does that then leave her political future? I mean, there's been a lot of controversy around Grace Mugabe here in South Africa as well, with regards to her dealings with a specific model in the country. But where does this leave her political future, would you say?
Abigail, allow me to deviate from political academics and say, personally, I don't think she had a political future to begin with.
Okay.
Like I said, social media is the opium of the people of Zimbabwe, and she fed it very well with numerous rants, very unprofessional and unpolitical rants, which have led to the situation. In fact, she stood a stronger chance of a political career if they had not expelled Vice President Mnangagwa.
How so?
Well, she hadn't presented she hadn't presented herself as an enemy, and Vice President Mnangagwa has always maintained his loyalty to Robert Mugabe. And if you maintain your loyalty to Robert Mugabe, then you're definitely maintaining your loyalty to his family. But then I think everything has now transpired the way it's transpired because she has then deviated from the plan and she has come in between that loyalty and that friendship.
If you say Mnangagwa has always shown loyalty to President Robert Mugabe, why then was he axed? What happened there?
Well, I mean, the situation is clear. It all had to do with Grace Mugabe's influence. And I think everything began to transpire after his alleged poisoning, where he then had to fly down to South Africa and get immediate medical attention. He did not immediately at that point in time reveal that he had been poisoned. But once he did, at a rally in Masvingo, southwest of Zimbabwe, it was then speculation was that he was poisoned by either allies of the G40 or Grace Mugabe, and that's when the tensions really rose to where they really escalated to where they are now.
Let's chat a little bit about South Africa's response. You did mention earlier that you were somewhat disappointed in President Jacob Zuma's statement and response. Why exactly?
The Constitution of Zimbabwe is there to serve the people of the country. In political science, we have something we call constitutionalism and constitutionality. Basically speaking, that is, yes, it's in the Constitution, but should it be in the Constitution? And is it serving the people whom brought about the Constitution? The question at the end of the day then is that this coup or soft coup, whatever people want to call it, is it serving the best interests of the people of Zimbabwe? And as I've said, I'm not on the ground in Zimbabwe, but from the people that I have spoken to, and being a Zimbabwean myself, I definitely do think that change, especially a peaceful change, which I do see happening in Zimbabwe right now. We definitely do know that our army is a very professional service, way more professional than our police services.
Okay.
And We haven't heard any reports of any violence against civilians. We do know that employers have given people the option to stay at home. Some people have gone to work. Business is running somewhat as usual. Of course, there's speculation and people are going to play it safe. But we do know that the people of Zimbabwe are currently safe. We are a peaceful people, and we do trust our security services to not hinder or violate the rights of any of our citizens.
Would you expect, or would there be an expectation for South Africa to intervene in any way? Can South Africa intervene in any way, in your view?
Intervention is a strong word. I think there could be talks. There should be discussions. There should be deliberations amongst, the parties that are the relevant parties. Intervention in the form of any military or any other such intervention, I think at this point in time would be against our principles, would be against AU and SADC principles, because like we said, there has been no violence, and the rights of the common people in Zimbabwe, of the citizens, have not been violated.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Malindi, for your time this morning. We appreciate you, this afternoon, excuse me. We appreciate you talking to us, and hopefully we'll chat again as the story continues to develop. Thank you for sharing your time with us.
Thank you for having me, Abigail.
It's a pleasure. That was KF Malindi Jr. joining us in the studio, just unpacking and discussing the current situation in Zimbabwe this afternoon. We are going to take a quick break, but more news and updates on the other side. Stay with us here on ANN7.